The smell of motor oil and old leather had always been my sanctuary. 20 years of running Jake's auto restoration, and I still found peace under the hood of a classic car. Tonight, it was a 1967 Mustang Fastback, cherry red with chrome that gleamed like a promise. The radio crackled with classic rock while I adjusted the carburetor, trying to ignore the laughter drifting from our house next door. "Jake, get in here!" My wife Sarah's voice cut through the music. "Jenna's cutting the cake!" I wiped my hands on a rag and glanced at my watch. 9:30. Jenna Morrison's 40th birthday party had been going strong for 3 hours, and I'd managed to avoid most of it by hiding in the garage. Not that I didn't like Jenna. She was Sarah's best friend since college, smart as a whip, and ran the most successful insurance agency in town. But these parties always made me feel like an outsider in my own social circle. "Coming," I called back, though I took my time washing the grease from under my fingernails. Through the window, I could see into our living room where about 15 people clustered around our dining table. Sarah had gone all out with decorations. Gold balloons, fancy flowers, the works. She loved hosting these things, said it was good for her real estate business to keep the local power players happy. I should have stayed in the garage. When I walked into the house, the conversation died for just a moment, the way it does when someone enters a room where they've been the topic of discussion. Jenna Morrison stood at the head of the table, stunning as always in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Her husband Tyler was nowhere to be seen, which struck me as odd, since he never missed a chance to work the room at these gatherings. "There's our birthday girl," I said, forcing a smile. "Sorry I'm late. The Mustang was being temperamental." Jenna's eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite read. "Oh, don't apologize, Jake. Perfect timing, actually. We were just about to play a little game." Sarah appeared at my elbow, her cheeks flushed from wine. She'd had her hair done that afternoon, blonde highlights that made her look younger than her 38 years. "Truth or dare," she said, giggling like a teenager. "Jenna's idea?" I felt my stomach tighten. Isn't that a little juvenile for our crowd? "Come on, Jake," said Marcus Webb, Sarah's colleague from the real estate office. "Live a little. We're all adults here." The group had arranged themselves in a loose circle in our living room. I recognized most of the faces. Couples from the neighborhood, Sarah's work friends, a few people from the country club, the kind of people who drove BMWs and took vacations in the Hamptons, the kind of people who sometimes made me wonder what Sarah saw in a guy who made his living with his hands. "I'll start," Jenna announced, settling gracefully into the armchair across from where Sarah had pulled me onto the couch. "Since it's my birthday, I get to pick first." She let her gaze sweep the room like a predator selecting prey. When her eyes landed on me, that strange smile returned. "Jake, truth or dare?" "Truth," I said quickly. Safer option. "Boring," someone called out, but Jenna held up a hand. "No, that's perfect. Jake, tell us honestly. What's the most dishonest thing someone in this room has ever done to you?" The question hit like a sucker punch. Around the circle, people shifted uncomfortably. Sarah's hand tightened on my arm. "Jenna, that's not really—" "It's fine," I said, though my mouth had gone dry. "I guess I can't think of anything major. Everyone here's been pretty straight with me." Jenna's smile widened. "How refreshing. Your turn to pick someone." I chose Marcus, asked him something safe about his most embarrassing moment. He told a story about falling into a fountain at a wedding that got some laughs and broke the tension. The game continued around the circle. Harmless questions, silly dares that involved dancing or singing off-key. But I kept watching Jenna. There was something coiled about her tonight, like a spring wound too tight. And where the hell was Tyler? When the circle came back to Jenna, she didn't hesitate. "My turn again. Jake, truth or dare?" "I already went," I protested. "Birthday girl's prerogative. I get to pick whoever I want." Her voice had taken on a strange quality, almost musical. "Truth or dare, Jake?" Sarah squeezed my arm. "Honey, just pick dare. Get it over with." Something in her tone made me look at her more closely. She was avoiding eye contact, staring at her wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. A cold finger of dread traced down my spine. "Dare," I said. Jenna stood up slowly, smoothing down her dress. The room had gone quiet again, but this time it felt different, expectant, like everyone was holding their breath. "I dare you," Jenna said, taking a step toward me, "to let me kiss you." The words hung in the air like smoke. I started to laugh, thinking it was a joke, but the look on Jenna's face stopped me cold. She was serious, dead serious. "Jenna, I don't think—" "It's just a game, Jake." She was close enough now that I could smell her perfume. something expensive and dangerous. Just a harmless little kiss between friends. This is ridiculous, Sarah said, but her voice sounded strained. Pick something else. Jenna ignored her, reaching out to touch my cheek. What's wrong, Sarah? Afraid your husband might enjoy it? That's when I should have stood up. Should have ended the game right there. Instead, I sat frozen as Jenna leaned down and pressed her lips to mine. It wasn't a quick peck. It was a real kiss, soft and warm and lasting just long enough to make everyone in the room supremely uncomfortable. When she pulled away, the silence was deafening. What the hell, Jenna? Sarah's voice cracked like a whip. She was on her feet, face flushed red with anger. How dare you? How dare you kiss my husband? Jenna straightened up, that mysterious smile never wavering. She looked beautiful and terrible, like an angel announcing the apocalypse. How dare I? She repeated softly. The same way you dared to sleep with my husband. The words hit the room like a bomb going off. I felt the blood drain from my face as every piece of a puzzle I didn't even know existed suddenly clicked into place. Sarah's face went white, then red, then white again. Around the circle, our friends and neighbors sat in stunned silence. What did you just say? I heard myself ask, though my voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Jenna turned those green eyes on me, and for the first time tonight, I saw real emotion there. Pain, anger, and something that might have been pity. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Jake, but your wife has been screwing my husband for the past 3 months. That's not... Sarah started, but Jenna cut her off. Tyler's phone, Sarah. He left it at home last week when he went to work late. Guess what I found in his text messages? She pulled out her own phone, fingers flying over the screen. Should I read some of them out loud? They're quite detailed. Jenna, please, Sarah whispered. Not like this. Not like what? Jenna's voice was rising now, all pretense of control slipping away. Not in front of everyone, the way you've been flirting with him in front of everyone for months, the way you touched his arm at the Morrison's barbecue, the way you practically sat in his lap at the charity auction. I remembered those moments now, scenes I'd tried to ignore or explain away. Sarah laughing too loud at Tyler's jokes, the way she'd started dressing up for every social event, how she'd suddenly become very interested in attending every gathering where the Morrisons would be present. Jake, Sarah turned to me, tears starting to flow. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Really? I stood up slowly, my legs feeling like rubber. Because what I think is that my wife of 15 years has been cheating on me with her best friend's husband. Please enlighten me about how that's not what I think. Marcus Webb cleared his throat. Maybe we should all just... Sit down, Marcus, I said without taking my eyes off Sarah. You knew, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. Who else? I looked around the circle at these people I'd considered friends. Who else knew my wife was making a fool of me? The uncomfortable shuffling and averted gazes told me everything I needed to know. They all knew. Every single one of them had watched my marriage implode and said nothing. It started at Jennifer's wedding, Jenna continued, her voice now calm and clinical. Remember, Jake, you had food poisoning and couldn't go. Sarah went alone, and Tyler and I had that big fight about his gambling. We drove separately. Apparently they left together. I did remember. I'd been sick as a dog, throwing up every hour. Sarah had been so understanding, telling me to rest while she went to represent both of us at the wedding. She'd come home after midnight, slightly drunk and unusually affectionate. The hotel room was registered under Morrison, Jenna said. I have the credit card statements. Sarah was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. Jake, please. It was a mistake. It just happened, and then it kept happening, I finished. For 3 months. I tried to stop it, she sobbed. I wanted to tell you, but you didn't want to give up the good life. The words came out harder than I intended, but I was past caring. The house, the cars, the country club membership, easier to just keep screwing around and hope nobody noticed. That's not fair? Fair? I laughed, and it sounded ugly even to my own ears. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling me you were unhappy before you decided to hop into bed with Tyler Morrison. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. David Chen, my lawyer. We'd gone to high school together, and he'd handled the paperwork when I bought the garage. Jake, what are you doing? Sarah asked. Calling my lawyer, I said as the phone rang. David, it's Jake Peterson. I know it's late, but I need you to come to my house right now. Yes, tonight. Because I want to start divorce proceedings immediately, and I want to do it while I have witnesses. The room erupted. Sarah started screaming at me to hang up the phone. Marcus and a few others tried to play peacemaker, saying we should all calm down and talk about this rationally. But Jenna just sat back down in her chair, looking satisfied for the first time all evening. David, the address is 1247 Maple Street, I continued, and bring whatever paperwork you need to get this started tonight. I hung up and looked around the room at these people who'd been my social circle for the past decade. Party's over, folks. Thanks for coming. Jake, please, Sarah grabbed my arm. Don't do this. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, whatever you want. Just don't. I pulled away from her. Don't what? Don't protect myself? Don't have some self-respect? You made your choice, Sarah. You made it every time you texted him, every time you met him at some hotel, every time you came home and lied to my face. People were starting to leave, gathering purses and jackets with the awkward efficiency of party guests fleeing a crime scene. But Marcus Webb wasn't moving. He stood there looking at me with something that might have been guilt or might have been pity. You've got something to say, Marcus? I asked. He glanced at Sarah, then back at me. She's not the only one, Jake. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Tyler Morrison's been working his way through half the wives in this town. Jennifer Walsh, Susan Chen, probably others. It's been going on for years. Marcus, shut up, Sarah hissed. No, he said firmly. Jake deserves to know what kind of man his wife threw away 15 years of marriage for. Tyler Morrison is a predator who targets married women because he thinks it's safer. Less chance of complications. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. How long have you known about this? About Tyler in general? A couple of years? About Sarah specifically? I saw them together at the Riverside Hotel about 6 weeks ago. And you said nothing. Marcus had the grace to look ashamed. It wasn't my place. It wasn't your place. I repeated the words slowly, tasting their bitterness. My wife is cheating on me with a known serial adulterer, and it wasn't your place to mention it. Jake, get out. I pointed toward the door. All of you, get out of my house. They filed out quickly, leaving behind empty wine glasses and the detritus of what had been Jenna's birthday party. Jenna herself was the last to leave. She paused at the door and looked back at me. I'm sorry it had to happen this way, she said quietly. But I couldn't let them keep making fools of us both. After she left, it was just Sarah and me in the sudden, crushing silence of our living room. She sat on the couch where we'd watched 1,000 movies together, where we'd planned our future, where we'd held each other through good times and bad. Now she looked like a stranger. How many times? I asked. Jake, how many times, Sarah? She closed her eyes. I don't know. Maybe 20? 20 times. 20 separate decisions to betray our marriage. 20 times she'd chosen Tyler Morrison over me. Did you use our bed? No, she said quickly. Never here. Always hotels or his place when Jenna was out of town. She nodded miserably. The doorbell rang. David Chen stood on my front porch with a briefcase and the slightly rumpled look of a lawyer who'd been dragged away from his evening plans. This is really how you want to do this? He asked as I let him in. This is exactly how I want to do this, I said. Fast, clean, and final. David Chen had always been a thorough man, which was why I'd called him. While Sarah cried in the kitchen, he spread paperwork across our dining room table and walked me through the basics of New York State divorce law. No-fault divorce meant we didn't have to prove adultery, but Sarah's affair would definitely impact the division of assets. The house is in both names, he said, making notes on a legal pad. But you owned the garage before the marriage, so that stays with you. What about savings accounts? Joint checking and savings, maybe $40,000 between them. Her real estate commissions go into a separate account, probably another $30,000 there. Kids? No kids. One of our biggest fights over the years. Sarah had always wanted to wait until her career was more established. Now I was grateful we'd never brought children into this mess. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her face puffy from crying. Jake, please, can we talk about this privately? Anything you want to say, you can say in front of David, I replied without looking at her. This is insane. You're going to throw away 15 years of marriage because of one mistake? David raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Peterson, didn't you just admit to approximately 20 instances of adultery? That's not... She stopped, realizing how that sounded. It was one relationship, one mistake that went on too long. 3 months isn't a mistake, I said. 3 months is a choice you made every single day. She sank into one of the dining room chairs. I never meant for this to happen. Tyler was just, he paid attention to me. He made me feel special. And I didn't? Not like that. Not for a long time. Her voice was barely a whisper. When was the last time you really looked at me, Jake? When was the last time we went anywhere together that wasn't a work function or a social obligation? The words stung because there was truth in them. We had fallen into a routine over the years: work, dinner, television, bed, rinse and repeat, but that didn't justify what she'd done. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to solve the problem by sleeping with Tyler Morrison. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were just talking at Jennifer's wedding, and he was being so sweet, and I'd had too much wine. Stop. I held up a hand. I don't need the details. David cleared his throat. Mr. Peterson, given the circumstances, I'd recommend filing for an immediate legal separation. That protects your assets while we work out the formal divorce agreement. Mrs. Peterson, you'll need your own representation. I don't want a divorce, Sarah said desperately. Jake, we can fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Can counseling make me forget that my wife screwed another man 20 times? Can therapy erase the fact that all our friends knew about it and said nothing? People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. I slammed my hand on the table, making David's papers jump. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. A mistake is double booking dinner plans. What you did was a deliberate, calculated betrayal that went on for months. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Jake, this is Jenna. I know tonight was horrible, but you deserve to know everything. Can we meet tomorrow? There's more. More. What else could there possibly be? I need some air, I said, standing up. David, can you finish this without me? We'll need your signature on a few things, but yes, I can handle the initial paperwork. I walked out into the night, leaving my wife and my lawyer to sort through the wreckage of my marriage. The October air was crisp, carrying the smell of burning leaves and the promise of winter. I'd always loved this time of year, the way the world seemed to shed its old skin and prepare for something new. My phone rang. Tyler Morrison's name appeared on the screen. You've got some balls calling me, I said by way of greeting. Jake, look, I know how this must seem. How this must seem? Tyler, you've been screwing my wife for 3 months. How exactly should it seem? It wasn't supposed to go this far. Sarah and I, we just connected, you know? Sometimes these things just happen between people. No, Tyler, these things don't just happen. People make choices. You chose to pursue a married woman, and she chose to let you. I never meant to hurt you, man. You have to believe that. What I believe is that you're a predator who gets off on destroying other people's marriages. Marcus told me about the others. Silence on the other end of the line. Yeah, I know about Jennifer Walsh and Susan Chen. How many others, Tyler? How many marriages have you helped destroy? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You're a cancer, Tyler. You find happy couples and you poison them from the inside. Sarah wasn't happy, Jake. She told me. I hung up before he could finish the sentence. Whatever Sarah had told him about our marriage, whatever justifications they'd created for their affair, I didn't want to hear them. When I got back inside, David was packing up his briefcase. Sarah sat at the table, staring at a stack of papers like they might spontaneously combust. Separation agreement is drafted, David said. Sarah has agreed to move out temporarily while we work through the asset division. You'll each be responsible for your own debts going forward. Where am I supposed to go? Sarah asked. That's not my problem, I said. You should have thought about that before you decided to blow up our marriage. Jake, please, sign the papers, Sarah. She looked at me for a long moment, searching for some sign that I might change my mind. When she didn't find it, she picked up the pen and signed her name with shaking fingers. After David left, Sarah went upstairs to pack a bag. I could hear her moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers and closet doors. When she came back down with a suitcase, her eyes were red from crying. I'll come back for the rest of my things later, she said. Call first. She hesitated at the door. Jake, I know you don't believe this, but I do love you. I never stopped loving you. You have a funny way of showing it. After she left, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of Jenna's birthday party. Empty glasses, crumpled napkins, the lingering scent of Sarah's perfume. 15 years of marriage, ended in a single evening by a game of truth or dare. I picked up my phone and looked at Jenna's text again. What else could she possibly tell me that would make this situation worse? Only one way to find out. I typed back, tomorrow, 2 p.m., Murphy's Diner on Route 9. Her response came immediately. Thank you. You deserve to know the truth about everything. Murphy's Diner hadn't changed in 30 years. Same red vinyl booths, same black and white checkered floor, same smell of bacon grease and coffee that never quite left your clothes. I arrived early and claimed a corner booth where I could see the parking lot. Old habits from my army days, Always know your exits. Jenna walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, looking nothing like the polished woman from last night's party. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Without the makeup and designer clothes, she looked younger and somehow more vulnerable. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Coffee?" asked Marge, the waitress who'd been working here since I was in high school. "Please," Jenna said. "And maybe some pie. I haven't eaten since yesterday." After Marge left, we sat in awkward silence for a moment. Through the window, I could see the autumn leaves swirling in the parking lot, carried by a wind that promised the first frost wasn't far away. "So what's this more you mentioned?" I asked. Jenna wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. "Tyler's been planning to leave me for Sarah." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What?" "He's been siphoning money from our joint accounts for months. Small amounts, nothing I'd notice right away, but it adds up to almost $50,000. "How do you know it was for Sarah?" "Because I hired a private investigator." She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "I've known about Tyler's affairs for years, Jake. But this time was different. This time he was emotionally involved." She slid several photographs across the table. Tyler and Sarah at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Tyler and Sarah looking at apartments. Tyler and Sarah at what appeared to be a jewelry store. "He bought her a ring," Jenna said quietly. 2 weeks ago. A 3-carat diamond engagement ring." My hands were shaking as I picked up the photos. In one of them, Sarah was holding up her left hand, admiring something on her ring finger. Her face was radiant with happiness, more joyful than I'd seen her in years. "They were planning to run away together," Jenna continued. "Tyler's been looking at job opportunities in Florida and California, places where they could start fresh." "When?" "Soon, maybe within the next month or two. Tyler's been liquidating assets, closing accounts. He even put our house on the market last week." "Without telling you?" "He forged my signature on the listing agreement. I found out when a realtor called to schedule a showing." She laughed bitterly. "Apparently, I'm a very motivated seller." Marge appeared with a slice of apple pie that Jenna ignored. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. I was trying to process the magnitude of what Sarah had planned to do. "She was going to leave me," I said. "Just disappear with Tyler and start a new life." "That was the plan. Tyler's been telling people he's thinking about taking early retirement, exploring new opportunities. Very casual, very believable." "What changed? Why didn't they just go through with it?" Jenna's smile was sharp as a blade. "Because I found out, and I decided to blow up their little fantasy before they could destroy both our lives completely. The birthday party, the dare, you planned all of it. Every detail. I knew Tyler would conveniently find an excuse not to come. He's been avoiding me for weeks. I knew Sarah would be there, playing the devoted wife while secretly planning her escape. And I knew you deserved to find out the truth before they disappeared with half your assets." I stared at the photographs, trying to reconcile the woman I'd been married to for 15 years with the stranger in these pictures. Sarah looked different, younger, more alive, the way she'd looked when we first met. "There's something else," Jenna said. "The money Tyler's been stealing? Some of it came from a joint investment account he shared with Sarah, an account you probably don't know about." "What kind of account?" "Real estate investments, properties they bought together over the past year using money from Tyler's business and Sarah's commissions. They're listed as business partners, but the investments were clearly personal." She pulled out more papers, bank statements, property deeds, investment documents. Sarah's signature was on all of them. "How much are we talking about?" "Conservative estimate, about $200,000. They've been buying up distressed properties, renovating them, and flipping them for profit. Very lucrative, very smart. Also very illegal if they were using marital assets without your knowledge. $200,000. Money that should have been ours, invested in a future that didn't include me." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why help me?" Jenna was quiet for a long moment, picking at her pie with a fork. "Because Tyler destroyed my life, and I want him to pay for it. Because Sarah helped him do it, and she should pay too. And because you're the only person in this whole mess who doesn't deserve what happened to them." "What do you want from me?" "I want justice. Real justice, not just a messy divorce and some hurt feelings. I want them to lose everything they stole, everything they built on lies and betrayal." "What are you suggesting?" "Tyler's been committing fraud, forgery, embezzlement, probably tax evasion. Sarah's been helping him hide assets and evade financial disclosure laws. If we work together, we can make sure they face real consequences." I thought about Sarah's tears last night, her pleas for forgiveness and second chances. Had any of it been real, or was she just buying time to execute her escape plan? What would you need from me? Access to your financial records, testimony about what assets Sarah had access to, cooperation with the authorities when they investigate Tyler's business practices. And what do you get out of it? I get to watch my cheating husband lose everything he cares about. His business, his reputation, his freedom. And I get to make sure Sarah doesn't get to ride off into the sunset with the money she helped him steal. It was a tempting offer. The rational part of my brain knew I should talk to David Chen before agreeing to anything, but the angry, betrayed part of me wanted to see Sarah and Tyler pay for what they'd done. I need to think about this, I said. Of course. But don't take too long. Tyler's been accelerating his timeline since last night. I think he knows I'm onto him. She gathered up the photographs and documents, leaving only one picture on the table, Sarah trying on the engagement ring Tyler had bought her. Keep that one, Jenna said, a reminder of how much your marriage really meant to her. After she left, I sat alone in the diner, staring at the photograph. Sarah's face glowed with happiness as she admired the ring Tyler had given her. When was the last time I'd seen her look at me that way? When was the last time I'd given her a reason to? But that didn't excuse what she'd done. It didn't justify the lies, the theft, the elaborate plan to abandon our life together. Whatever problems we'd had in our marriage, they could have been solved with honesty and communication. Instead, Sarah had chosen deception and betrayal. I pulled out my phone and called David Chen. Jake, how are you holding up? I need to see you, I said. Today, and bring someone who specializes in financial crimes. What's going on? It's worse than we thought. Much worse. David Chen's office occupied the top floor of a converted Victorian house downtown, all dark wood and leather-bound law books. He'd brought in Patricia Williams, a financial crimes specialist from Albany who looked like she could prosecute a case in her sleep. This is quite a portfolio, Patricia said, spreading Jenna's documents across the conference table. Your wife and Mr. Morrison have been very busy. How bad is it? I asked. From a legal standpoint, very bad for them. They've violated multiple state and federal laws, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and that's just what I can see from these documents. David leaned back in his chair. Jake, you need to understand what you're getting into here. If we pursue this, it's not just a divorce anymore. It's a criminal case. Sarah could face serious jail time. How serious? Federal wire fraud carries a maximum sentence of 20 years, Patricia said matter-of-factly. Money laundering adds another 20, tax evasion another 5. Of course, she'd probably plea bargain for much less, but we're still talking about significant prison time. I thought about Sarah sitting in our kitchen this morning, crying over coffee and begging me to reconsider the divorce. Had she been planning her escape even then? What about Tyler? He's the primary actor here, so he'd face the harshest penalties. Plus, if Mrs. Morrison is correct about the forgery and embezzlement, he's looking at additional state charges. And if I don't cooperate? David and Patricia exchanged glances. Then they probably get away with it, David said. The divorce proceeds normally, Sarah keeps whatever assets she can hide, and Tyler faces minimal consequences for destroying 2 marriages. But if you do cooperate, Patricia added, we can freeze all their assets pending investigation. Every bank account, every property, every investment. They won't be able to access a dime while we sort out what belongs to whom. My phone buzzed. Text message from Sarah. Jake, I know you're angry, but we need to talk. There are things you don't understand. I showed the message to David. Should I respond? Not without recording the conversation. In fact, I'd recommend having no contact with her until we decide how to proceed. What about Jenna? Can we trust her? Patricia smiled grimly. Mrs. Morrison has her own motivations, but her evidence appears solid, and she's already agreed to full cooperation with any investigation. What does that mean for me? It means you'd be working with a woman who's just as angry and betrayed as you are. That can be a powerful alliance, but it can also be dangerous if either of you lets emotion override judgment. I stared out the window at the street below, watching ordinary people go about their ordinary lives. 2 days ago, I'd been one of them, a small business owner with a comfortable marriage and a predictable future. Now I was contemplating sending my wife to federal prison. I need to ask you something, I said. If I do this, if I cooperate with the investigation, am I doing it for justice or revenge? David considered the question carefully. Does it matter? Your wife committed crimes. She stole from you, lied to you, and planned to abandon you. Whether you pursue justice or revenge, the result is the same. She faces consequences for her actions. But my motivations matter for how I'll feel about this later. True, Patricia said. But consider this. If you don't act, they'll do this to other people. Tyler Morrison is a predator who's been destroying marriages for years. Your wife enabled him and profited from it. Stopping them isn't just about your marriage, it's about protecting other families. That argument resonated with me. I thought about Marcus's revelation that Tyler had been working his way through half the wives in town. How many other marriages had he destroyed? How many other men had been where I was now, betrayed and humiliated, while their wives planned secret escapes? What's the first step? I asked. Patricia pulled out a digital recorder. We start by getting your full statement about the timeline of events, what you knew and when you knew it. Then we contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit and turn over all evidence. The FBI? Wire fraud is a federal crime. Once we make the referral, this becomes a federal investigation. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. Please, Jake, don't do anything rash. We can work this out. I turned the phone face down on the table. Let's get started. For the next 3 hours, I told them everything. Sarah's changed behavior over the past few months, the unexplained absences, the new clothes and jewelry I'd assumed came from her real estate commissions. Patricia recorded every word while David took notes. Did your wife ever ask you to sign any financial documents you didn't fully understand? Patricia asked. A few things. Refinancing papers, tax documents. I trusted her to handle the paperwork. We'll need copies of everything. Bank statements, tax returns, loan applications, investment documents. If she forged your signature or misrepresented your financial situation, that's additional fraud. By the time we finished, the sun was setting outside David's windows. I felt drained, like I'd been running a marathon in emotional quicksand. What happens next? I asked. I contact the FBI tomorrow morning, Patricia said. They'll want to interview you formally, probably within the next few days. In the meantime, don't contact Sarah or Tyler, don't discuss this with anyone else, and don't do anything that could be construed as interfering with evidence. How long before they're arrested? That depends on how quickly the FBI moves. Could be days, could be weeks. But once they execute search warrants and freeze the assets, Sarah and Tyler will know their plan is finished. I drove home through the quiet streets of my neighborhood, past houses where families were settling in for the evening. Lights glowed in kitchen windows, television screens flickered in living rooms. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that their neighbor was about to become the center of a federal criminal investigation. My house felt empty and strange without Sarah's presence. No shoes by the door, no purse on the kitchen counter, no sound of the television from the living room. Just silence and the lingering scent of her perfume. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my recliner, thinking about the choice I'd just made. In 48 hours, I'd gone from a comfortable, if somewhat stale marriage to planning my wife's criminal prosecution. The speed of it was dizzying. My phone rang. Jenna Morrison's name appeared on the screen. How did it go? She asked. It went. The FBI will be involved by tomorrow. Good. Tyler came home this afternoon and started packing. I think he's planning to run. Did you try to stop him? No. Let him run. It'll just make him look more guilty when they catch him. Jenna, are you sure about this? Once we cross this line, there's no going back. Jake, they crossed the line when they decided to steal from us and destroy our marriages. We're just making sure they face consequences. After she hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my living room, thinking about consequences. Sarah would face them, certainly. Tyler would face them, too. But what about me? What kind of man was I becoming by choosing prosecution over forgiveness? My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Sarah. I know what you're planning. Please don't do this. I love you. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. If she really loved me, she never would have put us in this position. The FBI moved faster than anyone expected. By Thursday morning, Special Agent Rebecca Torres was sitting in my living room with a briefcase full of documents and a digital recorder that looked more sophisticated than anything I'd ever seen. Mr. Peterson, I want to thank you for your cooperation in this investigation, she said. Agent Torres was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of my home. Your testimony and the evidence provided by Mrs. Morrison have given us a strong foundation for this case. How strong? Strong enough that we'll be executing search warrants this afternoon. Mr. Morrison's office, his home, the properties in question, and several bank safety deposit boxes. What about Sarah? We'll be searching the real estate office where she works and her personal vehicle. We've also frozen all accounts associated with their investment partnership. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. After 3 days of living in limbo, things were finally moving, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was setting in motion something I might regret. Will she be arrested today? That depends on what we find and whether she cooperates. If she's willing to testify against Mr. Morrison and make full restitution, we might be able to work out a plea agreement. And if she doesn't cooperate? Agent Torres's expression didn't change. Then she'll face the full weight of federal prosecution. After she left, I tried to focus on work at the garage, but concentration was impossible. Every time the phone rang, I expected it to be Sarah or David Chen or someone telling me the whole thing had exploded into public view. The call came at 3:15. "Jake, it's David. They arrested Tyler Morrison an hour ago." "Where?" "At his office. Apparently he was in the middle of shredding documents when the FBI arrived. Not exactly the behavior of an innocent man." "What about Sarah?" "She's been brought in for questioning, but no arrest yet. Agent Torres thinks she might cooperate if she understands the severity of her situation." I closed the garage early and drove home, unsure what I'd find there. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway, but that didn't mean anything. The FBI might have impounded it as evidence. Inside, the house felt different somehow, like a crime scene waiting to be discovered. I poured myself a drink and turned on the news, but there was nothing yet about Tyler's arrest. In a town this size, it wouldn't stay quiet for long. At 6 o'clock, Sarah's key turned in the front door. She came back looking wrecked. Messy hair, smeared makeup, eyes empty. Tyler had been arrested, and prosecutors were offering her a plea deal if she testified. She hesitated because it meant admitting she helped steal from me and planned to run. I told her the truth. She didn't just make mistakes, she committed crimes. And only responsibility could save her now. She asked what happens next, and I made it clear there was no us anymore. When she claimed she still loved me, I said if she loved me, she wouldn't have done this. After she left, Jenna texted that Tyler was denied bail, and I realized the arrest was only the start. Trials, testimony, everything becoming public. Months later, Tyler went to prison, Sarah got probation and paid restitution, and both of them lost the life they tried to build on betrayal. I didn't get my old life back, but I stopped being a victim.